All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're looking at a really thought-provoking analysis from Alexander Amuche about what he describes as a major identity crisis in the Nigerian church. We're going to unpack the arguments behind his idea of kingdomnomics, and it's a pretty fascinating and honestly challenging perspective. So, let's get into it.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a statistic from evangelist Isaac Omalehin that is, well, it's pretty stunning. He found that out of the 10 wealthiest church organizations in the entire world, exactly 0 of them are in Nigeria. Not one. Just let that number sink in for a second. 0.
Because right after you hear that, you see this. Of the 10 richest pastors in the world, a whopping 5 of them are Nigerian. Half of them. So 0 of the richest churches, but 5 of the richest pastors. It's that stark contrast right there that is the entire foundation for the analysis we're exploring.
And that, of course, leads to the big question. You have to ask, what is going on here? What is this huge gap between the wealth of the institution and the wealth of its leaders? What does it really tell us?
This is where we get to the heart of the argument. The analysis suggests there's been a fundamental identity shift. It boils down to a pretty simple but powerful question. Is the institution operating as a church, or is it functioning more like a business?
To really get what he's saying, we've got to look at what the ideal version of the church is supposed to be. The analysis uses this Greek word ekklesia to define it. It's the idea that the church isn't just a building, it's supposed to be heaven's agency here on earth. Its job is to look after the kingdom of God, something that goes way beyond just money and material things.
And this slide just lays it out so clearly. On the left, you've got the 5th domain. That's the ecclesia we were just talking about, all about a heavenly mission. But then, look over on the right. That's the 3rd domain, what the analysis calls a covenanted association. What is that? Well, it's basically a registered business, playing by earthly rules. And the huge central claim here is that many churches have functionally slid from that left column right over to the right one. Okay, so if that shift really happened, the next question is obvious. Why? How did it happen? What does this perspective say is the root cause of this whole identity crisis? The source doesn't beat around the bush at all. It points to one thing, summed up in this powerful phrase, the deceitfulness of riches. The core idea is that the constant pursuit of getting and keeping money has become this primary, distorting influence that's twisted the original purpose. So how does a church get from point A to point B? Well, the analysis suggests it's kind of like a slippery slope. It can start with this heavy emphasis on prosperity, where the main message becomes about getting wealthy. But then, that focus can make you lose sight of the bigger spiritual picture. And before you know it, the goal isn't kingdom advancement anymore, it's just material wealth. The institution risks becoming a vehicle for personal gain, not spiritual guidance. Now, after laying all of that out, the analysis doesn't just leave us there with the problem. No, it makes a really urgent plea. It's a call to action, a call for the church to get back to basics and reclaim what it sees as its original true purpose.
And the stakes here are incredibly high. The analysis uses this really well-known biblical metaphor, like salt that has lost its flavor. And if you think about it, what's the point of salt if it's not salty? The idea is, if the church loses its unique spiritual purpose, it risks becoming totally irrelevant, and, in the words of the source, useless. Which brings us back to the real mandate, right? The core mission. According to this perspective, the purpose was never about accumulating wealth. It was about being a beacon for things you can't buy: hope, love, and redemption. A total 180 from the problems we've been talking about.
So how do you fix it? Well, this is where the analysis introduces its big idea, kingdomnomics. It's laid out as a clear 4-step roadmap for churches to find their way back to that 5th domain identity. Okay, so here's the path it proposes. Step 1, it all has to start with a Christ-centered mentality. That's the bedrock. Step 2, from there you adopt an eternal perspective. You start prioritizing values that last forever over temporary pleasures. Step 3, this totally reframes how you see resources. It's not your personal property, it's stewardship, a sacred trust you manage for a higher purpose. And that flows right into the final step 4, generosity. Giving becomes the core practice built on trust in God's power. And the whole point of all of this? It's actually pretty simple. It's for the church to shift back from being that business-like, covenanted association and to become, once again, a powerful force for what the source calls kingdom advancement.
So, we'll leave you with this final thought, and it's a big one that goes way beyond this specific topic. For any organization, a charity, a company, a government, anything, as its wealth and power grow, does its original purpose have to shrink?
Is it almost inevitable that the mission gets watered down along the way? It's definitely something to think about.